Good afternoon, everyone. Hope your summer is going well. It is time to bring you in to Ask the AD, an opportunity for us to give you updates on App State athletics and for us to answer some of the questions that you've submitted to us on social media. I'm Matt President, joined by Director of Athletics Doug Gillin. And Doug, it's always an exciting time of year because you've either been right in the midst of something or something's right around the corner. And in this case, we're a month to the day of our first fall competition with soccer traveling to Wake Forest and 47 days from kicking off football. So I know that oftentimes June and July are thought of as a slower time of year, but boy, we are right around the corner from a lot of excitement.
Yeah, it's not been slow at all this year, which I guess is the mark of an athletic department that's thriving. There's always something going on. We're always looking at the next thing and how we can innovate and be entrepreneurial. We had 3 events, as a matter of fact. We had our Legends event, we had our football golf event, where we've raised almost in 3 events, we raised almost $1 million. So over June and early July, we've been really busy trying to get out and fundraise to continue to provide for our student athletes.
We're going to talk a lot about what's on the horizon, as we've hinted at, but I want to go back to the spring because there was a lot to celebrate there as well. As you've made your way through the summer, what has made the biggest impact? What have you reflected most on with the way the spring season's wrapped up?
Well, I think when you're thinking about spring, you're even talking about how we finished up with wrestling. You're talking about 6 of the last 8 SoCon championships. You're talking about John Mark getting the Coach of the Year, and so that was all of spring. And since you and I visited here in December, but so we that finished our fall, and then certainly the way that Alan Kress and men's golf started off winning that tournament at Marshall, I thought was really big for us. Some of the low rounds, some of our student athletes were shooting like you're kind of blowing you away that you could actually shoot that low of a round. But I really think the future certainly super bright. And then we just, with women's golf, we hired Brittany DeBuell. So we're super excited about Brittany coming on board and done a nice job here in a couple of weeks and getting out and helping fundraise, which is really important for all of our sports. And then certainly the run that Kermit went on and then our men's baseball program went on. And, we could go on, but we had 2 first-team Sunbelt student athletes in the sport of baseball with CJ and Xander. So that was really cool. And getting Xander drafted and then, playing in the semis. I was down there just playing in the semis in a tournament, which is a 4-bid league. And when we talk about everything that's going on with App State athletics, we all need to consider that we have placed ourselves in one of the best leagues in America through realignment. And with that is there a lot of challenges, but a lot of opportunity.
You talk about opportunity, and we'll start with football this fall because I know that's front of mind for a lot of people, and we'll remind you throughout the show, but football single game tickets go on sale Wednesday, so act quickly. We expect those to go fast. As we turn our attention to football this fall, if you were to rank a few top priorities for a successful fall season, what is most top of mind?
Well, we got to continue to compete on the field, right? Being competitive, and when you look at last year and some, we're right there. Unfortunately, we ended up 6-6, but you're right there in a lot of those games. So I think I'm really, really pleased with the work that Sean's done, Coach Clark's done, in getting a new staff and some new staff members in, having Coach Sloan come back, having Coach Ponce come back. That was great. When people come home, it just, there's something like, you go out there and you're like, wow, that place is really special and I need to come home. And having those 2 back is really exciting for us. The job that they've done recruiting, the job they've done managing the transfer portal. The transfer portal's new to us, this NIL, the collective. We'll talk about a little bit of that stuff here today, but that's all new. Now, what the good news is at App is we've stayed in our lane. We've not, run. We've made sure that we've been intentional in how we're going to manage what is a new order throughout the NCAA and certainly in college football. Now, with that, our recruiting class, you saw that in that little span of 3 or 4 days, we had 10, 12, 14 commitments, and you certainly see in Coach Sloan's influence back in the state of Georgia. So that's certainly awesome. And then our coaching staff is really excited about that. So a couple other things. Certainly, we want to continue. We've led the league in attendance the last 2 years. We want that to continue. We're off to a great start. We sell out season tickets for the second consecutive year. We sell out East Carolina. I know some folks, we didn't have a lot of tickets at North Carolina, so we sold out of our allotment quick. So we got to continue to pack Kid Brewer. We're working on more concession stuff to make that easier. We're working actually on some west side bathroom enhancements to make those lines go a little bit faster for everybody. So we're really continuing to work on the experience. We got a new wall going in here. I think that make the stadium even more aesthetically pleasing here in the south end zone. So those are just a couple things. We got to bring our A game. Our coaches, student athletes got to bring their A game, and we'll have another amazing season here at Kid Brewer in the High Country.
You talk about all these elements, right? The efforts of you and this staff, the efforts of the coaches and student athletes, and obviously the fans and what they do in packing the stadium. How do you conceptualize what that means to the Boone community when all of those different areas are working together? What is the impact on the rest of the High Country?
Well, I think certainly one way that you brought that up is economically. We did an economic impact study that was done through the system. The University of North Carolina system did this at all the schools, and I think our economic impact study, again done by a third party, is $112 million that just the athletic department brings to the High Country. And so when we're out there talking about joining the Yosef Club and getting our corporate sponsors involved, in the NIL experience for our student athletes. We take it really serious, and we're intentional. We kick off at a certain time, whether it's 2:30 in the month of November or 3:30 in September and October, because we want that to be good for our fans traveling up and back, but also for our community and our business communities. So I think that really helps when we're all working hand in hand, because we're only going to need their support more and more as the High Country grows, as our athletic department grows in every sport. As an example, we were looking, we're bringing Darius Rucker up here this summer, and the hotel rates, as an example, they're expensive. So I think that's from a commerce standpoint, that's a good thing for the business community. That means people are eating and staying here. And so we're anxious to continue to develop our relationships with the corporate community as we bring more and more events up here. But I think it just continues for us to be integrally involved in everything that goes on. And now it's annual, like we talked about. Now with these concerts coming up and et cetera, we're really a year-round operation.
You started to mention that retaining wall going in on the hill in the south end zone, and it kind of bridges us to the discussion of the facility as a whole. And I know last fall you unveiled some of the renderings for what the east side might look like one day. What update do you have for folks on the progress there, and if there's a timetable, and also what folks who are passionate can do to support those efforts?
Yeah, and I think when you think about construction, and certainly that's one of the key pieces, is facilities for all of our sports. And really, we've done this, strategically, in that we have to move things in a certain trajectory or a certain order. And when I say move, literally it is, we've got, the great news is we opened up that $6 million track, and that was amazing. We had our first track meet in April. Thank you to Randy Marion for helping us get that thing going. And then we also right now we're currently building the field house for the track and field, and then that brings us into our 6 outdoor tennis courts, which we desperately need on our campus, and then that brings us to our indoor tennis court, and then it brings us to our softball field, which all of those things have to happen in order. And the reason I'm going through this is so that our folks understand we got to get all those things to happen in order before we do the east side. And after we build the softball field, now the next thing is this new indoor facility right up here. To have the next rendition of the SoField building that is 100 yards that you can kick and punt in, that your offense and defense can be in at the same time. I don't think a lot of our fans know going into last year. When we're going to host University of North Carolina and the thunderstorms are coming through Appalachian, there was at least 5 practices that were key that we couldn't practice outdoors. We had to go indoors, and when we go indoors up here, it's only offense at one time and defense at one time, and the walls are close, right? So if we want to be competitive long term, that has to happen. So we get that done, and then in combination with the east side. And the reason I say in combination is there's a lot of ways that we're looking at the financials and working with our partners across campus, because it's a process, not just on campus but in state, et cetera, that if we do it right and the interest is what we think it is, that long term, and actually long terms in the next 5 to 10 years, it actually could cash flow for the athletic department. And that's really our charge, is to be able to build these facilities, limit the debt, and hopefully actually add a cash stream that helps the athletic department for years to come. And so, having said all that, those things have to happen in that order, but we're hoping that order is in the next couple of years. And we've had a lot of interest from our fans already that have put down some down payments on seats. When you build it, we want it. And that's coming in all the time. So we're always out there building so that we at one point in time can go and say, okay, we've got this money, let's build this. Last thing, we still need to raise more money. We need more folks. We're getting ready to announce the season, as soon as the season starts, our second largest gift in the history of the athletic department. We need some more folks to really invest. As I mentioned, $112 million in economic impact. I hadn't mentioned yet almost $600 million of unearned media that the athletic department was able to provide to this wonderful university last year. 25% increase in applications for our great university. Point is, I believe if you're looking at an ROI and you're looking at an investment, the athletic department at Appalachian State has proved it's a good investment, not just to continue to be on a national platform for our athletic department, but for our university. And so that's my point is continue to invest. We need more investors that believe in what we're doing. We are changing lives. Academics is absolutely changing lives, and we're able to put Appalachian in a national forefront to all those stats I just gave you that is changing lives. So invest.
We've talked about the growth of so many different sports, from facilities to what a lot of teams have done on the field recently. One question that's been out there for you is, are there any plans to bring back men's soccer or to add any other sports to the mix here at App State?
Yeah, that's a great question, and we get asked certainly about bringing the three sports back that we cut when we were in the middle of the pandemic, coming out of the pandemic, and then it might not be weekly, but it's bi-weekly. Somebody's asking us about, could we add this and can we add that? We really need to be at 17 sports right now. Right now doesn't mean forever, but right now, as an example, we're in an inflationary environment where it was tough to afford what we were doing before. It's tough every year. I think and I won't give you the one part of our budget, but the inflationary environment has gone up 38%. And one of the real critical expense lines in our budget. So as of right now, we want to be really good at 17. We finally fully funded our scholarships. Just a quick aside, I was talking to Kermit Smith before the season last year, and we're looking at the roster. He's talking to me about the talent acquisition. I said, Kermit, how are you able to do this? And he said, I'm finally fully funded in my scholarships. And so we really need to get comfortable and excel in the 17 that we have. That means full scholarships. We're getting ready. The NCAA allowed us to add directors, where volunteer coaches now become, full-time coaches. We're doing that. It's expensive, but you have to. We have to continue to provide. And so that's a long-winded way of saying I really want to get comfortable with 17. No today is not no forever, but those are the 17 we're going to go forward with.
You mentioned the current economics and the inflation and rising costs that our department has felt, but it's also been felt by our student athletes and their families. What has App State been doing to support incoming and current student athletes with those rising costs both on and off the field?
Well, I think certainly, we try to provide every service that we can here, and what that means is whether it's all of the service we talk about, but what we're really talking about, and this is kind of a community-wide, the rents. The rent, it's supply and demand, but the rents just keep going up. I thought they were high in 2015 when I came here, and now they just keep going up. And so for us, in some ways, we subsidize that. So when everybody goes up in the rents around Boone, that costs us more money because we have to continue to provide for our student athletes that they continue to pay the rent. And certainly everybody knows about food costs. The inflationary environment with food costs is the same thing. So that's where I'm talking about investment. I'm talking about raising money. It's not frivolous. It's really what all of us see every day in our monthly bills. They're all going up. So that's happening with athletics too. What we're trying to do is provide more food here. We have got fueling stations, what we call fueling stations, which is nutrition. We've got 2 full-time nutritionists. That's only the second year that we've had that. And then we have fueling stations at the North End Zone here in the Mark Rick Center. We have it over in Varsity. We have it over in Homes. So we have more access to nutrition. And hopefully that's not meant to be for their meals. It's meant to be supplemental because we're still providing meals where we can as well. So continuing to keep our hand on the pulse, making sure our student athletes, if they need anything, they ask, and then we do our best to provide it. And our supporters, our donors, have been very, very gracious. As we were talking today, we're 20% increase in Yosef Club donations last year, 16% increase in Yosef Club members, and so they continue to give at a high level, and the expenses continue to grow at a high level.
Well, their interest in giving is not just to the department, but also directly to student athletes through NIL. And so what can you tell folks about how they can give through NIL, particularly in terms of purchasing merchandise and how that can benefit student athletes?
Well, I think certainly, from a licensing standpoint, whether it's indirect, but our licensing, over the last 7 years has gone from $300,000 in revenue to $800,000 in revenue. The brand has never been stronger. Our licensing has never been stronger. We continue to struggle a little bit with getting from a supply chain, whether it's the jerseys in the bookstores or whatever, is because the apparel and the direct relationships that you might have is a little bit more challenging. So we're continuing to knock that down. We actually just had one come through the other day, where we're working on getting some more apparel in the stores. But I think it's twofold. One is licensing, which it indirectly but directly impacts every student athlete here. If you go out and buy a T-shirt that has the A on it or has the Yosef or whatever, that benefits student athletes here. So continue to buy licensed merchandise. That continues to go really, really well for us. We want to be $1 million school in that regard this year. And that's net profit. That's not gross sales. And you look at some of these schools, some of the bigger ones, they do really well. And we're probably as high as there is, certainly amongst our peer set right now. So we'll continue to purchase merchandise, we got to continue to push. And then go back to NIL. NIL can look a lot of different ways. And we've had some of the local restaurants, as an example, engage with our student athletes. That's been really, really beneficial. Because what we call it, and I've created this word this year, Joey Jones thinks it's in the dictionary, I'm not sure, it's called stickiness. And when we talk about, continuing, whether it's the transfer portal, student athletes, retaining student athletes, a lot of it is about the stickiness that we all create, the sense of community, the sense of family, the sense of pride that everybody has in App State. And one of the ways is our restaurants or our housing, our apartments or some of the clothing lines, they can do NIL deals. When I say deals, they, like give a student athlete a couple $100 off their rent, or throw them and it's all social media and it's quantifiable, because it's not a gift. It's an exchange. It's a benefit for the name, image, and likeness. And our student athletes have robust social media profiles. We all read about that. And it's quantifiable that if you can use them, then it's a business transaction. And we need more of that to happen in the high country because it's happening all over the place. It's happening at a pretty high level here, too. We're over 100 NIL deals since it started. But we need more folks to engage and create that stickiness. And it might even just be when you see our student athletes over at the Red Onion, make sure you go up and say hi, and let them know how much it means to you that they put that A on it and represent our great university. I think that is it all fits together.
Well, Doug, thank you as always for doing this. We appreciate you taking the time to answer all the questions.
Thank you. Now, just before I go, I did want to say, with this transfer portal, we cannot thank our university partners, starting with our leadership at Dr. Everts, but certainly we've got some new folks in enrollment management. Dr. Troy Johnson's been a huge, huge help. Certainly our provost, Heather Norris, has done an amazing job in allowing us the opportunity to really go out and look at student athletes and see how they would fit into the academic mission here. And we couldn't compete in the transfer portal without them really working hand in hand with us. So I'm super excited about our great partnerships on campus.
If you missed any of this conversation, it will be archived on YouTube, so you can go and check out the full conversation there. And again, one more reminder for you. Wednesday, the 19th of the month, single game football tickets on sale, and we expect them to go fast. So go to appstatesports.com. For Doug Gillin, I'm Matt Present. Thank you so much for joining us here on Ask the AD.